if you haven't noticed yet or haven't gotten a message on your phone yet, there is an election on Tuesday. Make sure you go out and vote. Make sure you take time to vote. Make a plan to go vote. But if you look at the polls, it seems pretty clear who's probably going to win. Here is a national poll from 538, and right now it has Biden up by, that's 8.8 points. Biden at 52% nationally, at Trump with 43%. And as you can see, it's been pretty steady for this entire race. And if we look over to some of the battleground states here, I'll try to zoom in for you this little bit. Look at some of these battleground states, right? Now, if Biden wins any of these and Trump loses pretty much any of these, he's going to lose the election, right? And so this paints a pretty good picture of where the race has been out for a while. And these are pretty big margins. I mean, by 6 in Arizona, 3 in Florida, 6 in Pennsylvania, and 11 in Wisconsin. I mean, those are some pretty big leads, right? Biden has been winning the polls clearly this entire time, right? But the question I have for you is, have you ever taken one of these polls? Has anyone ever called you and asked you if you wanted to participate in a poll? Now, I got that call a couple weeks ago, and, I love politics, right? I mean, look around. I got a political YouTube show. I love politics. And this whole process sucked. I mean, I was on the phone for like more than a half hour, and they asked all these questions. It was one of those things, too, where like, okay, do you support this candidate if they knew this? Would you support this candidate if you knew that they were involved in this? Would you support this candidate if they knew they were... And each question they asked the entire question, right? And I just tried telling the guy, look, I am voting the way I am voting. Like, that's it. And I really just wanted to get him off the phone because I'm like, come on, man. Like, I told you how I'm voting, and you keep asking question after question after question. At a certain point, I stopped really even listening to what he was saying. I'm just like, okay, yes. I'm voting for this guy, okay? Give it up, right? Getting polled kind of sucks. And so that's got me wondering, are the polls right or wrong this time, right? Because how accurate is polling really? And I read this article not too long ago from some professors at good old USC. And their headline is, people are going to be shocked because of the return of the Trump shy voter. I always love this, picture of Trump. I wonder how he feels about it. Now, in this article, they predict that there is a lot of folks who are going to vote for Trump and that Trump will actually win on Tuesday. Now, when you look at those other polls, it's kind of hard for me to believe that. And when you see how much turnout has been going on, it's basically hard for me to believe that. But the thing these guys specifically get into is polling. And as much as I want to trust all the polls out there, after reading this article and kind of learning a little bit more about how polls are conducted and how they're kind of done, it's really easy to not trust some of the polls. So here's the thing. How they usually do is they a lot of polls, they call random people and they figure out, are you a likely voter, not likely voter? They ask you a ton of different questions, and the whole process is just not fun. I mean, when was the last time you talked on the phone to someone? I kind of hate it when people call me now. Text is so much better. And so these pollsters, they realized that this old methodology for polling doesn't work so good in 2020. And so what they did is they decided to kind of free up the process a little bit, right? You can fill out the poll whatever you want to. If you wanted to come a little, if it wasn't convenient for you to fill it out at a certain time, you could do it later. You'd have to do it so you could do it online, which is another thing. A lot of these polling places, you have to do it over the phone. And so the whole process just seems a little cumbersome for 2020. And so their thought process is, okay, since we are kind of doing this in a better way, people can give us more honest answers, right? And so that's the thought, that maybe this race is a little closer than people actually think. Now, as I mentioned before, there has been massive turnout already for this election. Here in Texas, we've actually had more votes counted or tabulated, I want to say, in 2020 than we did in 2016. And several votes have seen the same thing. And what you've seen in these states is massive Democrats voting, right? It's mostly Democrats who have been voting early, with Trump saying that you should show up at the ballot box on Tuesday. And so, we could see this massive swell of vote on Tuesday. And, because right now when you look at some of the polls, you look at who's voting, it's like, 55% Democrat so far, right? And like 25% independent, 25% Republican. I don't think anyone realistically thinks that's where the vote is. The vote is out now, right? And so, that could have also, people seeing these kind of numbers could have lulled people into a state of complacency like they did in 2016. So they might stay home and not actually vote, which could also help Trump, Another factor in this is that Trump is supposedly going to claim victory before it's, as soon as possible, before it's all over. See, in some states like Arizona, they're being smart about this process. They're counting the votes before election day, right? They've been counting votes for the last 14 days. So if you voted in Arizona, your vote is already in the system. But if you're other states, potentially here in Texas, I'm not 100% sure on what their voting counting, what their vote count setup is like. But there have been several court decisions that are going to force them to wait to count the vote on election day itself, right? And so they're going to count all the votes that people tabulate in person first, because that's how they always usually do it. And so theoretically, it could look like Trump has won the election before he actually won the election. And he could just get on good old Twitter and say, hey, I won again. And that could also have some impacts in the election, especially if Florida goes his way and he tweets something like that, and that could affect votes in the other half of the country that are in a different time zone. And so we'll see. That's a possibility. But here's the thing. Right now, Trump supporters, they seem a lot like Cowboys fans, right? The Cowboys are 2-5 right now after getting crushed by the Eagles. But if you talk to any Cowboy fan out there, they still think they're going to the Super Bowl. And honestly, just like them, like it is for Trump, it's still possible. There's also those silent Trump voters out there, right? I mean, if you go on, you go on Facebook, you go on social media, everyone's piled against for Trump. I mean, it piled against Trump. And so it's kind of funny sometimes when every once in a while I have a friend who posts something that is pro-Trump, and I got to ask the question, are they a Trump supporter, not a Trump supporter? Doesn't matter, but I don't know. And that's the thing, are there people who are for Trump that just aren't saying it? And that could definitely also negatively impact the polls. So, honestly, with all this, we'll see. If people want to paint the race as a done deal for now, no one really knows. We're looking at all this all these analytics, all this data, but the fact of the matter is, it ain't over till it's over. So, if you want Trump to win or Biden to win, you better go vote. Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thank you so much for watching Citizen Pete. I really appreciate it. If you haven't already, click that little subscribe button, maybe the like button, and hey, maybe just leave a comment. I want to know what you're thinking. What do you think about all the politics, the news, and all the stuff that's going on in our country?